even though we decide to do something for ourselves, does not mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that it is just, that's it, I'm done. You still have to go through the emotions of change. Change always has some pull, and you gave up 4 of your favorite food. This is Katie Gordon, and you're listening to the Wait is Over podcast. Welcome, health and freedom seekers. Sit back and relax as you come on this journey of overcoming obstacles so you can lose weight, gain health, and live the life you've been looking for. Hello, freedom seekers, and welcome to this week's show. I'm your host, Katie Gordon, and the wait is over with Dietless Living 360 degrees. There's no recipes, food regimes, or exercise programs to follow. This is simply about how to take your life back, how to take control, because we all have a voice and we want to be heard. We want to forget about dieting, focus on living, and lose weight. And to do that, we have to develop our personal health leadership skills and create a new mindset, a mindset that gets us over the obstacles and challenges of our own unconscious programs and our life, because that's really what's ultimately causing habit relapse and impacting on our weight and health. And the purpose of this podcast is to share what I learned from 25 years in dieting hell and spending over $100,000 working out how to step into dietless living, because nobody should have to go through that much BS just to learn how to lose weight permanently. And today I'm talking to the absolutely delightful Judy Livingston. So welcome to the show, Judy. I'm very excited to have you on the show with me today.
Hi, Katie. How you doing? Lovely to be here.
Thank you. I am absolutely, truly excited to have you on the show. We've spoken before, and I met Judy through a friend. Hi, Dan. How you going? Judy, this weight loss podcast is actually a bit different to the normal weight loss podcasts that are out there, because we don't talk about food or recipes or any of those sort of traditional methods of weight loss. Because from my experience and observations, the biggest impact on people's weight and health is not the foods that we choose to eat, but it comes from how we think, feel, and deal with life and the obstacles and challenges that we have to go through. Because that's really what's, going on behind the scenes of everything that we do for ourselves and for others. And so normally I talk to people about what their biggest obstacle or challenge has been in life. But with you, we've talked before, and you have such an interesting work background, career history, and you've worked in government department before, and you've worked with a lot of people who have had difficult and challenging lives. And you've seen the people that have done really well, and there's been people that don't do really well. So you've seen the full gamut of the challenges, the real life challenges that people actually have, and how it does impact on their mental, emotional, physical health. And so I was wondering if today we could talk a little bit about that, and maybe you could share some of the observations that you've had of the people who did really well and how they managed to navigate themselves really without too much support from external people. Like, I know they haven't been privileged enough to go to NLP trainings and get a lot of, personal development and that sort of thing. So is there something that sort of comes to mind to get the ball rolling?
I think for me, and certainly the people that I've worked with, I think one of the things that you were just talking about, and that is joining, your gyms and all of those things. Firstly, for most people, or a lot of people that I've worked with, that's government and non-government, I think they just can't afford that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the very first things. So if they can't do it themselves, or they have encouragement from other people or family members or whoever it is and themselves, then they're not going to make it. But I think the most important thing, really, it comes down to, and certainly after what I've just said, is your own emotional state and where they're at any given time. I think people need to recognize when they're, I guess, well enough to be able to go on that journey. And maybe you've got to get to a certain space for yourself before you can do that.
Yes.
Um, you know, I think that comes from situations where people emotionally eat, for instance,
Yeah.
because they're stressed.
Yeah.
If you're in a situation where you're stressed or you've got strategies to manage your stress well and you're doing very well, then I think that that changes that. And therefore, over time, you're then able to put your energy into another area. And let's be honest, losing weight for people is a massive area for them,
Yeah.
emotionally. So to recognize that it's a big part of their life.
And do you
But
find, sorry to interrupt you there, talking about the emotional stability, right? That's where the key is. And we just don't have enough education about that. So when we're talking about people who are, everybody has not got the understanding of their emotions and how to handle them in healthy, helpful ways. So you must have seen some people that have really like had to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps and develop their own emotional stability and strategies.
yeah, absolutely. And isn't that so very difficult? And I think they're very strong people. Let's be honest, you get to that point. Sometimes it could be, if I'm talking about my own weight loss, I would have said that I got to a point and said, okay, that's it. I'm changing my life. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do these things. That doesn't mean that I was particularly strong to do that. What it meant was I made a decision and I decided that that's what I was going to do. And some people do that, and you can do that and do that quite well. And really, it is about that focus, isn't it? You've decided, you've made a decision. That's it, I'm going to do it. But you've got to start somewhere that's small
Yes. Yeah.
so that you're not expecting the world in a week.
Yes.
Like it's just got to be in, baby steps along to meet that. And I think the people that succeed, and certainly that and this is even people on medication, which, we both know medication is a huge issue for weight
Mm.
gain in most issues. And I think for them to get a handle on the fact that, yes, they've got to take this medication, and often for life, if it's a mental health type medication, then they've got to get a handle on, well, what strategies can I use while taking this to help me through that?
Yeah.
I think that I'm currently working with somebody who is taking a medication which I have worked with other people before and exactly the same side effect, and that is where they've put on weight. This person's doing really well in a more restrictive diet, as in smaller portions, not necessarily missing out on everything. Of course, lowering some sugar and that sort
Yeah.
of thing, but still having some of those things, but just, smaller portions were the things that we started with, and just not a lot, just a little bit, then just taking out some sugar, not having that cake or not, even a sugar in a coffee, for
Yeah.
instance. That over a long period, and we're talking about a number of months now, has made a huge difference, and by about 6 or 7 kilos.
And that's it, right? It's small incremental changes,
Absolutely.
marginal gains over time, and not going in and because for myself, I used to go, I'd source out a diet, either one from somebody I'd pay to do it with, or perhaps I might do a diet that you read about in a book. But mostly the really restrictive ones were going through a paid professional, and they reduce too many things too fast, and it's just not sustainable. So what you're talking about is really the only proper way to do it.
Well, I think the other thing with that is, I don't know whether you found this, Katie, but I certainly did. I think it's giving you a diet that you don't necessarily like the food for either. And,
Yes.
let's be honest, and I can certainly talk about the person I'm working with at the moment, there's many things he doesn't eat. And if someone says to him, you're just going to eat a plate of vegetables, well, that's ridiculous. It's never going to happen. But if you're given foods, or if you're restricting the foods you're currently having, which obviously you enjoy, then that's a start, isn't it? And
That's
then
it.
from there, often you learn from there
Yes.
about other foods and what's good for you, etc. But to start with, why put yourself under that pressure? I think
I
is what I
totally
find.
agree. Totally agree, because it's too much too soon, and
Mm.
we skip, for me, having to give up foods that are important to me. Vegemite, love my Vegemite, and to have to give up bread meant I had to give up Vegemite, and
Oh,
couldn't do that, right? And a lot of the keto things are no fruit. I love my fruit, and yeah, it's giving up foods that are important to you. And like you say, if you're a finicky eater, or somebody who just says, no, I don't eat these things, and then all of a sudden the things that you do eat are the ones that are, no longer on the list, then it makes it really hard.
mm.
With medication, is it that medication changes like the thyroid and the workings of the body and causes the body to produce extra weight, or does it increase their appetite, or is it a bit of both depending on medication?
Good question. And I'm not a medical person, so I wouldn't like to give a medical response to that. But from my understanding, and certainly from what I've seen, it's more about the fact that they're hungry. It's a
Yeah.
little bit like, that emotional eating where
Yes.
you're just hungry, so they eat more. But it obviously changes something in their body as well.
Yeah.
Because the weight gain is often with eating the same foods quite quick. So it must be in the body as well, I would think.
Yeah.
But certainly your appetite and maybe the times you eat changes as well
Yeah.
because you're eating more. So instead of 3 meals a day, you might be snacking in between or having something at night time because
Yeah.
you're feeling a little bit hungry, whereas before maybe you didn't.
And I
Yeah.
guess for some people who are on medication, their lifestyle different to other people's lifestyles. If they're having it, whatever the illness is, whether it's mental, emotional, physical illness, they're not as active, are they? So that's a
No.
contributing factor.
Well, don't you think, and I mean, I guess I'm speaking for myself here. I think when you are feeling uncomfortable about your weight and you're carrying excess weight, then, I mean, I had times where I didn't even want to go out the house, never mind go
Yeah.
out the house and go for a walk around the block. So I think that's a lot about that. Again, it's that emotional state.
Yeah.
And I think that it's when you start to lose weight, however small that is, if you can recognize that a small bit is a great thing, then eventually you get out of that, don't you? You become more confident. You're able to read a little bit more. You're able to feel more comfortable to go for a walk because you're feeling better in yourself.
Yes,
Now,
because
that
you have
could
a
be
little win, don't you? Right? That's
exactly
keeping your promises
emotional
to.
again. It's
Yes.
emotional, isn't it?
Yes, you have
But
a
it's
win.
also
You're
physical.
keeping your promises to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to just cut down on sugar today, however much it is, half a teaspoon.
Yeah.
Yes, I did that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you can get to a point where, although you may have been active prior to putting on weight, I think if you get to the point where your emotional state is such that you're embarrassed, you don't want to go out there, you don't want anyone to see you, God forbid, you can't really go for a walk at night time, all of those things. And I think it's that again is still back to that emotional and how to break that. And little
Yep.
wins give you that little
Yes.
win.
That mental state, I was talking about in one of my other podcasts I did recently about the feeling of just I don't want to go out because I haven't got any clothes to wear. My mind, and I think it's the same for most people, is you get used to wearing some set of clothes. Somehow my brain says you'll look all right in this. Right. And it'd be whatever I was wearing to work and whatever I'd wear to the shops. It'd be like 3 outfits.
Yeah.
And then if I was to go to the gym, or there'd be a different social event, and I'd have to find something else to wear. And that would be the reality of, crap, I look awful, like, and then I'd be very hard on myself, but also realistic. I'm this big and nothing fits. And, going to a dress shop I would leave crying many times, because I couldn't find anything to wear. And thusly I would stay home. It was very isolating.
Oh, very much so. Absolutely. Really, really isolating. And I think that people who, and again, it comes back to a lot of support, and you've
Yeah.
got support around you, that makes a huge difference, I think. Now, whether that's professional support in your GP or whoever it is, or whether it's your family and your close people close to you, which is fantastic if that's not everybody has that though.
No, they don't.
And I think if you can reach out to somebody who is going to mentor you to some degree, and when I say that, that's not about, oh, look, you must do that and you mustn't do this. It's more about just listening to you. And so when you have a win, they're celebrating it with you. And then when you ask them a question, they'll help you to work that out or research it or do whatever. And I think that's really, really important as well.
Yep. So with yourself, when you made that decision to lose weight, is that what you did? You just went, I'm just going to start making small changes over time?
Well, and I'll tell you why it happened. I was out with my granddaughters one day and I went to do something and I couldn't do it or I wasn't comfortable doing it. And I said, all right, that's it. If it's going to impact on my life and my grandchildren, then I've got to do something about it. So I decided, which is probably against everything I've just said, but I decided for myself because this was something I chose to do. So it's
Yeah.
a little bit different. I chose to give up 4 foods that I absolutely loved.
Right.
And I did that and I lost little weight by little by little by little. And it took me 4 years for
What
me
were
to
the
lose
four
my weight.
foods, if you don't
The
mind my
four
asking?
food was meat,
Yep.
bread, butter, and potatoes. They were the four things. And I didn't, the interesting thing about it is I hardly ever eat meat now because my body
Yeah.
can't digest it as well. I mean, I can eat it. I can't say
Yeah.
I can't eat it, but I'm not really comfortable in eating it. But I found that was really hard. But I was so focused on the fact that I needed to lose weight. And if I gave those things up that were important to me, but not that important,
Yeah.
my girls were more important. So
Yes.
my mindset was different.
Yes.
But I do
It was your
understand that that's
choice, right?
hard. Sorry?
It was your choice.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think that's can be quite difficult, but you could give up one thing. You
Yes.
could give up, like you said before, it could be sugar in your coffee, or it could be um, 2 slices of bread a day.
Yeah.
You know,
Just
it could be
halving
as
things, right?
small as that. Yeah, it could be small, small, small. And I think that that's what's important. My situation was I made a choice because it was a lifestyle choice for me,
Yeah.
and that was different, and not any less emotional because that was I was very emotionally tied into that. But it wasn't really then about the food. It was more
Yeah.
about the fact that I have to do this.
And that's a really good point, right? Because even though we decide to do something for ourselves does not mean that it's easy. It
No,
doesn't mean that it is just, that's it, I'm done. You still have to go through the emotions of change. Change always has some pull, and you gave up four of your favorite foods. So there was the body addiction to those foods that you would have had to have worked your way through. There was just the mental desire for them and all the other things that go with it, which, as we know, is all emotional. It's all happening in here.
that's right.
And how to navigate in the moment. Like, this is the thing, right? This is where I could sometimes, well, long periods of time in losing weight, I'm just batting away the cravings. It's good. I'm motivated, but there'd always be those times, especially when habit relapse was moving in, where I couldn't do that, where, it's like, I want to say no. I just want to say no, but it would be so intense, the physical feelings for it, that without strategies, or that I didn't have anything back then, it was just full on willpower, just
I
grit.
think what I did, I think, Katie, in that instance, and I can recall doing this, and I sort of thought to myself, you've just gone off everything you love, and then maybe it was someone's birthday and they had a birthday cake, yeah?
Yeah.
And so that I didn't feel that I was missing out, I used to just have a little tiny bite.
Yeah.
So therefore I'm not missing out, but it didn't do anything. It didn't make any difference really, as far as what I was trying to do, but it also made me feel good that I wasn't missing out. So I think, again, that's a bit of a mind thing that I sort of thought, oh, well, I don't really even need the whole piece.
Yes.
And so that was a positive which came out of something so tiny.
For some people, though, I can't. There's some things, the old saying, one's too many and 100's not enough. So
Yeah.
there's certain foods I can just have one or a bite, and there's plenty of foods it's just
Yeah.
straight
I think you have to pick your food.
Yeah, you do. Straight
Yeah,
abstinence. And I used to find that a glass of water, having a glass of water was very handy,
absolutely.
because it was about washing the palate, to break that. Because sugar, there's something about the sugar, sugar begets sugar, and it's just like this hand to mouth thing would start to happen,
Yeah.
and you've got to break that cycle. So it was a drink water to wash it from the mouth would sort of like give my taste buds a reprieve.
Yeah.
I always remember Dolly Parton. She always says, she would do the same sort of thing. She would just have a bite of cake. She says, you've had the whole banquet in the first mouthful. There's no need to keep eating. Your taste buds are dulled by after that first mouthful. So good strategy.
I think water, what you're talking about, water is really important. I think that having a glass of water for the client I'm with at the moment always has a glass of water before dinner or before eating.
Yep.
And that makes a difference as well. So there can be little strategies like that you do, but that make a huge difference.
Is that so that they sort of feel a bit fuller?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Well, not only that, it's getting the water in, but
Yes.
yes, it
Got
also
to get
makes
the
you feel,
hydration.
yeah, and it makes you feel fuller for sure.
Yeah.
You don't eat
Yeah.
as much. Yeah.
Because there's so many things, right, that we eat. If we're eating a lot of processed foods, we're very dehydrated, and, water is so important. I think some people get really carried away with the water. I see some of these water bottles that people have. They're almost like a bloody tank. Yeah. It's like, I don't know that amount of water every day is, if you're eating fruits and vegetables and just, I don't think you need that much water. And, the more you drink, the more you go to the bathroom, you're just leaching out nutrients out of your body. So
Yeah.
there's a balance there somewhere.
Yeah, you've got to get the balance, I think, right.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about how you went through your weight loss journey. So you said it took you 4 years.
Yes.
And did you find, like, was it just a period of time where it was challenging, or was there different periods? Like, you did really well. You didn't habit relapse, and you just worked out your
I
own
wouldn't say I
strategy.
never put on weight. I don't, during period times, menstruation, that sort of thing. But I guess I wasn't as fixated on the scales.
Yes.
I only ever used to weigh myself once a week.
Yeah.
And I really used to just weigh it against my clothes. I'd put something on, think, oh, that's a bit looser, or,
Yeah.
oh, that feels quite good. It's not tight around the waist, that sort of thing. I think I've never really been a big scales girl anyway, but it's been more about the clothes and how they fit.
Yeah.
And then you sort of start wearing your clothes and they're falling off you, and you think, oh, okay, all right, well, I don't want to buy more clothes. Maybe I'll just go and buy a pair of pants I can wear to work and one shirt. And
Yeah.
then, and so again, it's a mindset. Oh, well, I don't want to buy a whole lot of clothes because I'm still losing weight.
Yes.
And so because it was positive, then I was able to continue on with that journey. It didn't mean that I never ate one of those four things, but it was very extremely rare
Yeah.
that I did that. And as I said, I'd have that bite of cake or whatever. And I think you get to a point where you just say, well, that's okay. You're strong. Look what you've done. You can do whatever you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I was, but I can tell my mind I was.
Well, this
and
is
I
the
think,
thing. You can just tell
yeah,
yourself.
no, exactly. And I think if you believe and if you see a result, and you can see a result, whether that be by a scale or whether that be by your clothes, or someone says, "Oh, gee, Judy, you're looking good.
Yeah.
You've lost weight." Whatever it is, I think that that's what really spurs you on. And bearing in mind that my end result was a lifestyle,
Yeah.
and so my lifestyle changed because of that.
So with that, so had you tried to lose weight in other
Oh
times
my
before
goodness.
that?
My goodness me. Yes. So as a child, I went through school, you get called fatty and fat. So all of that stuff. Bearing in mind, I was never really a big kid. I was probably, you know, I carried a bit more weight than others, but I wouldn't have said I was never huge.
We don't
Um,
have to be to get teased, do you?
no,
There
no,
doesn't have to be anything wrong with us
no.
to be teased.
And so I got to my teen years, and again, always feeling that I was big because, of course, you hear that often enough. My father died when I was 12, and my mother died and later on in life, but they both had heart disease. So then in my mind, I couldn't get big because if I did, then I'm likely to die of a heart attack.
Right.
That's what happens when, you know, you have that in your family.
Yeah.
So all of us, all of my siblings and myself, all of us watched our weight. So I was only ever between a size 12 and 14 most of the time.
Yep.
14 would have been about my highest, and I don't call that's not at all big.
No.
And these days I see most beautiful models that are plus sizes who look just absolutely gorgeous. But back in that era, I guess 14 was big, I suppose, because we were all quite restricted in you must wear this fashion.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think, oh, it's wonderful. You can wear anything you like anytime, and it's fantastic. And I love that. I love that
Yeah.
for the young girls now.
I do
So I think
too.
that,
People go, "Oh, they shouldn't wear that." Now, why shouldn't they? If they
yeah,
want to
well,
wear it, wear it.
exactly, exactly. But that wasn't the case when I
No.
was young. So I always grew up with this, I suppose, being overweight. I always felt I was
Yeah.
overweight, and I was never thin. I had a sister who was thin, so she'd be a size 10, and my other sister was about same as me. But I always believed. I don't think it would have mattered. I still felt I was big. So yeah, I think it's you grow up with that
Yeah.
mindset.
It's actually
And
a
then
good point. Sorry to interrupt you, but I've got friends, and it was the same for me. I've got a friend, there's a photo of her. Her waist literally looked about this big. And she said, I don't know why I thought I was fat.
mm,
Right. She had this itty bitty tiny waist, just
yeah,
like, and in her mind at that time, she thought she was fat. And I'm the same. I've got photos of me and I go, oh, I was pretty skinny, wasn't I? Because I didn't put on weight till I was
yeah,
21. I was pretty skinny, but I always thought I was overweight.
mm.
So we have
It's
this,
funny.
and mine wasn't from teasing or anything, but I think it's what you get from the media. You
Oh,
take it
absolutely.
in, you're constantly comparing yourself to it. We come from different era. I don't know how different it really is now for young girls, but women just were judged by looks. You
Mm,
should be skinny, and I
that's
certainly
right.
know a few people that I'd call fatophobes, people who were in my life that just, always had some comment to make about overweight, and especially overweight women, never really overweight men.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? A very gender focus,
Hmm.
which is very sad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you didn't really have a weight problem, like you were just a
Well,
size 12,
I didn't.
14.
I did, I guess. I suppose I could have been a size 10 like my sister, but I was,
Mm,
I was very active and I was always sporty and I
yeah,
always did exercise. And even at my biggest, when I made that decision, I was exercising 5 and 6 times a week. So
yeah,
the reason I was big was because I ate,
yeah,
not, and that was emotional eating for all sorts of things that was going on in my life at the
yeah.
time. And I even know the period of time that I put on the weight. And I'd actually gone to the doctor, and the doctor had said to me that she'd given me tests because I was going through menopause very early,
Right.
and she'd given me some tests, and especially because my parents, and she said, "Oh, Judy, the likelihood of you ever having a heart attack or a stroke is 1 in 3 billion type thing. You've got some sort of gene." And I went, now, and this is how your mind works.
Yes.
Psychologically, I then thought, I must have then thought, oh, well, that's okay. I don't have to worry now.
Gloves off.
But the issue is that, and it is a psychological thing because that never really, I can't ever remember thinking that. I don't think I would have ever thought that. But
Don't think you ever
psychologically,
went home and went, woohoo, I don't have
yeah,
it. I can eat what I like.
yeah, exactly. So over the next 6 years, I put on weight. And that was when my life changed to getting bigger then.
Right.
Um, and I was quite big. So yeah, so it's amazing what the mind does. It's very strong.
And what it does without your knowledge, this is the part that gets me. It's what it does without your awareness, without your
Yeah,
permission and
yeah.
without your awareness. Because I could put on, like I could lose weight and then the habit relapse for me was always a surprise, when I'd look in the mirror and go, well, when the hell did that 10 or 20 kilos come back? Like the surprise of it all. Like,
Yeah,
hello,
yeah.
here we are again. And speaking of people, you said before, you get some compliments from people when you're, losing weight and that feels good. For me, that was actually usually a trigger that would lead to habit relapse. So there was something in that when I'd get to a
Okay.
certain point and people, I can remember very clearly a time that I looked like a model. There's actually a photo of me at a work event and I'm in a red sequin dress and I look fabulous in that dress, in that photo. Thankfully, there was a photo of it. But that particular night, loads of compliments, etc. And I hadn't been drinking, been just living a nice, clean lifestyle. And I remember people, come to the bar and then, it's late at night, let's have shots, and it was the creamy shots and all of that stuff. And that was it. Game over. My weight just
Wow,
started to come back not long after
that
that. I
amazing.
know it was a slippery slide, but again, not aware of it.
Yeah,
So there's
and
so
it's
many things.
interesting. Yeah, and how the mind works, very, very strong, very
Yes.
strong.
And there you were, you got good news, and that was something that your mind went off
Yeah,
and did something
yeah.
else
And I mean, I
with.
should have been ecstatic. And instead of that, subconsciously, I put my guard down and started to eat more, obviously. I was going through some emotional stuff at the time as well, to be
Yeah.
fair. There was quite a few things going on in my life. And then it just starts. And as you say, it just snowballs. And all of a sudden it's 6 years later, and then I'm standing there one day and I can't do something. I think, oh my, how did this ever happen? What am I doing?
How did it
I
happen?
used to go to gym and everything, and I knew I was getting big, and I had shin splints, and I had all sorts of things. So there was lots of things to tell me, but yeah, I just wasn't doing anything about it.
But there's something, yeah, there's that thing that says I'm asleep to it. I know my clothes are getting tight. I know I'm going up in sizes. I know I've got shin splints. I know this, but we lie to ourselves. We don't do it on purpose, but there's a thing. After the COVID came through and passed, and I was talking to a young girl at South Bank
Yeah,
one day, and she had put on 15 kilos over COVID. Now, she said she'd never had a weight problem ever before. And, you know, we talked for a while, and she said she didn't notice. She didn't notice that she was 15 kilos overweight until her friends were all starting to make comments.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, so I said, well, how do you not notice, knowing that I'd experienced the same? She said, I don't know. I just think I wasn't doing enough different things, or and she'd never had a weight problem
Maybe you don't
before.
want to know subconsciously, Katie.
Yeah,
Maybe you just want to continue on your trajectory that you're going,
don't know.
you know? Don't know? Don't want to know?
No,
Don't.
it's just there, right? It's a thing, and that's really what dietless living is about. Is that
Mm.
having that awareness, because it wasn't until
And it is that. You're exactly right. And it is that. It is about saying, well, look, look in the mirror. I still don't weigh myself. I probably do it once. And I told you that I've just lost about 6 kilos, that I just put on a few kilos, but I never get past a certain point.
Yeah,
And I don't even think it was 6 kilos, actually. It's probably about 4. But I wasn't that uncomfortable, but uncomfortable enough that the waistline of my pants were tight or
yeah,
something had happened. And then I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll never go back to what I was,
yeah,
because that was a long time of getting through that time. And I
yeah,
think the number of people that I have helped over time, and I can't say I've really helped, but I could say supported them through their journey, was really about being aware and knowing that this week I've weighed myself and I put on a kilo. How did I do that? But I'm okay not to get stressed about it, but just watch myself a little bit, that
yeah.
sort of thing.
That's what
Um,
the motto is here, is just an ounce of adjustment is always easier to implement than 20 pound of change.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But it is exactly that. And I think you've got to monitor. It's like you monitor your health. Like
and your
it's like,
money.
yeah, your money. You certainly do that with your money. And I think it's just part of your life, isn't it? And
Yeah,
I think if you're feeling good at whatever you are, I don't care whether you're a size 20 or you're a size 10 or whatever you are, if you're feeling good and that's where you want to be, then you have to have some recognition of that
yeah,
changing,
yeah,
in
exactly right.
whatever strategy it is for you.
Yes.
Mine's getting on the scales once a week.
Yeah. And I say, I talk about this actually now, because for the longest time, for most of my life, the scales, most people who are trying to lose weight, the scales are our enemy, because we only get on them when we're losing weight, and we're
Yeah,
waiting for them to tell us the good news. Yay, you're there. You can,
yeah,
you've made it. You can stop. But when we're putting on weight, we're actually not getting on the scales, because the minute it starts to
yeah.
tell us the wrong story, I don't want to know. I don't want to get on them this morning because I know they're going to give me bad news. And that's how that sort of perpetuates into, hey, where'd 20
True,
kilos come from? But the
true.
reality is, been using the scales wrong all that time. So the real way to use scales is, like you're saying, is get on them, notice that there's an increase, and make a change. Oh,
Yeah, and it
that's
could be that
that's
it's a
going up. What
decrease.
am I going to change now?
Yeah, and maybe there's a decrease. Maybe you haven't been feeling well.
Yeah,
And maybe there's a decrease, and maybe you need to do something in your diet to help you with that.
yeah,
And so it works both ways.
yeah,
But we in our minds always think about the weight gain. But
yeah,
if something's happening in your health and you're losing weight, and that's an issue, then it's something that you really need to look at. And
yes,
whether it be that you have fruit smoothies or you have something that helps you on a daily basis to pick up your weight, to help you to feel that more energized. Maybe you're feeling lethargic and all of those things.
yeah.
So it can be for both.
Yes, and loss of muscle mass, you've got to
Yeah,
build your body, keep yourself strong. I think that's
yeah,
one of the things, because you said you've exercised a lot, and I love exercise as well. And I think one of the things that is a big topic for me is there's this idea of health, that if you're a very slender person, you must be healthy. And if you're an overweight person, well, you must be unhealthy. And we all know that there's
Oh,
people who,
that's not true.
yeah, we
Mm.
all know the people that go to the gym that, buff bodies, very puffy, really big or whatever. But then they go outside and they're smoking, or they drinking a lot on the weekends, or they're, really trying to out exercise that bad
And
diet.
not eating well either. Not
Yeah.
eating well. Not,
Lots of
yeah,
supplements and things, and
yeah,
they think that's eating well, and I don't really agree with that myself.
no.
um and then there's the people that are very slender. Now there's this girl, I wish I had a picture of her. She's adorable, wonderful girl I met in one of my jobs. A body like a model. I have no idea what her genes were, but she had two babies. She had a very bad diet. She really just ate sugary things all the time. But you wouldn't know it to look at her. She had beautiful muscle definition, very slender,
Wow.
really gorgeous. And it was like, okay, so you actually look really healthy, but your diet isn't. So I guess if we look inside, probably not going to look so great. Maybe there's
Mm,
a lot of stuff going on in there. But women that and men who are very slender, but you can tell there's no muscle tone going on there anywhere,
no.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, we need that muscle tone. We do need exercise. We have to
Mm,
have muscle strength. We've got to hold
yeah.
that skeletal system together.
That's really, really true. And I think exercise. Look, I've always been a sporty girl, even at school and all the rest of it, and swimming and all sorts of things. And always been interested in, just because I feel better.
Yeah.
So for me, it's my health. I feel better if I exercise, and I enjoy to do it. That doesn't mean that I've got even near a perfect body. No way. And I certainly don't have all of that definition or anything, but I feel better in myself. And so
You can pick
therefore,
yourself up off the floor. You've got muscle
yeah,
strength. You can pick bottles up with bags
yeah.
and stuff. Yes, you can still do
Exactly.
things.
So I can still do all of those things, and quite I wouldn't say that my hands are strongest, but I certainly, compared to other people at my age, yeah, I can bend down and do squats, and I can, get up off a floor and all of those things. Having said that, one of the things when I was that big was what happened to me, and I
Yeah.
couldn't get up. And that's when you really do need to say, and the worst thing about that is it's not really about your weight, but about your health there.
Yes.
Because if you can't move your body to that level, in other words, your mobility is affected,
Yeah.
then that becomes a whole different ball game. So it's not just your weight, but it's also your health that's being
Yeah.
affected because you don't have your flexibility. You fall more often.
Yeah.
You don't have your balance, all of those things. So I
And
think for
life
me,
gets very hard, doesn't it?
it does.
Yeah.
Whereas if you continuously do something a day, whether that is 15 minutes walking, 20 minutes walking, whatever it is, whatever you choose to do for
Yeah.
some point in the day, and it doesn't have to be, that's the other thing I used to get tied into. And I think we spoke about this, Katie, that I got sucked into, I must do it for this period of time every day, and then I've
Yes.
got to increase it. So I was
Yes.
really tough on myself initially. Now I just get up, and if I've got 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or I'm cooking dinner, I'll do some squats. Or do you know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
actually have such a structured view on that. And I
Yeah.
think that's helped me continuously do things,
Yeah.
because I don't have that structure. But for someone who likes structure, and I can tell you, I know I've been there, it's hard to get out of. But once you start thinking, oh, no, it's all right, I've got 20 minutes, I'll go to the gym. Oh, no, I've got 20 minutes, I'm just going to walk around a couple of blocks.
That's it. Exercise in the gaps, right? This is why
Yeah,
people stop exercising because,
exactly.
and like I remember for myself,
No time.
yeah, make this big chunk of thing. Okay, so I'm going to the gym. I'm going to go 700 times a week and I'm going to do an hour. But,
Yeah,
1 hour at the gym is really 2 hours of your life going there, dressing, all of
exactly.
it, whether it's before or after work, whatever. And just getting yourself back on track.
Yeah.
And then life comes in, push, and you got 50 other things to do. And the
Yeah.
exercise is the first to go. And I
Yeah.
totally agree with you that exercising in the gaps, exactly right. You're in the kitchen. What can I do? I can do some push-ups off the bench while I wait for the kettle to
Yeah.
boil. I can be doing some squats, some lunges. I can be having a stretch. I'm often stretching on the kitchen bench. When I clean my
Mm.
teeth, I'm having a
Yeah.
stretch. And that's it. Go for a walk, find things that you love, hula hoop,
Yeah.
dance, anything.
Yeah, and I agree with you though. I think it's one of the first things to go when you
Yeah.
get in that emotional rut, as I call it, and something is just so bad that you just can't pull yourself out. And I think until you make an effort to do something very small,
Yeah.
that often can be the catalyst that helps you to continue.
Yes.
Um, but it's not easy. It's not easy. The person I'm working with at the moment, so he's lost it about 7 kilos now, and he's on that medication, and he's doing really, really well. And it has been really small things, but he swims 3 times a week, and we walk every day, even on the days he swims, and sometimes twice a day on the other days.
Yeah.
But we try to do it like I do it by water. And yesterday we went on the City Cat, so we walked around South Bank, or
Yeah.
I try to make it interesting. I try to make it so that it's not a chore. It's not
Yeah.
something that's
It's got to be
repetitive in the same
enjoyable, isn't
place. Yeah. And I think that's always nice too. Change your routine up to get your
it?
exercise. Don't do it the same all the time. And that's hard for people who like the gym.
Yeah. Yeah. But if they
But
love
I
the
think,
gym, then that's great. You love the gym.
yeah,
You love that,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. Do the thing you like. I
yeah,
do like variety. I like to change stuff up. I get bored pretty easy.
yeah, me too.
Yeah. But
I've gone to a couple of boot camps in my life, one in Thailand and one in the entrance in Sydney. I've been down there twice. And that was really to pick up my act. So,
yeah.
in other words, for me to change out of my rut
Yeah.
in exercise and gym, etc., because I didn't feel that I could get out of it. I
Yeah.
needed someone to help me to do that.
A big
Um,
catalyst.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's motivating, I imagine, to do. Is that like a week-long boot camp or something?
Well, in Thailand, it was about 10 days.
Yeah.
Down the entrance is both times it was 7 days. Yeah,
Yeah.
but really good, very, very good.
Yeah.
And I'd recommend it to anybody. But again, I did it not to lose weight. At the time, I didn't need to lose weight. It was because I really wanted to change up what I was doing, and I needed to get more variety in my food, and I wanted to learn more about different things.
Yeah.
So that's why I went. But everyone goes for a different reason.
Exactly.
And I actually lost 3.5 kilos during that week, and I have no idea why I lost it, except that I was doing different things, and probably just the way that I was doing it, or the number of hours a day. Let's be honest. If you're
Yeah.
there, if you're there all day to do exactly that, then I guess you're exercising more. So I
Yeah.
was exercising probably 2 hours more than what everybody else was,
Oh, really?
just because I really like it, and
Yeah.
I thought that I wanted to get the best out of it.
Yeah. See, and
So
you did it because you loved it, you wanted to, you knew that was going to be a catalyst for you.
yeah.
And
Yeah, and I
these
took
are,
my niece on the second one, and she did really well as well.
oh, awesome.
Yeah.
How long ago is that?
I was only looking at some photos the other day, probably 4 years ago when I took my
Oh,
niece.
yeah.
And when I went, and the reason she wanted to go was because she saw my results, but that was probably 3 years prior to that. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
I started about 7 years ago. But and I loved it. It was great. It was really good, and I really enjoyed it. But as I said, I wasn't really there to lose weight. It was more about learning more. It was a learning for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Judy, I'm really, really loving our conversation. And you've just told me about doing boot camp. And I wonder, like, what's the biggest risk that you've ever taken? Because I like to ask
Mm.
this of all my guests because everybody has something different and it gives other people ideas.
Yeah. Well, you know that I swam with the whale sharks in WA just recently, but I wouldn't call that a big risk because they're very timid and it's so beautiful. But I will say jumping out of a plane at 14,000 feet's got to be the one.
How long ago was
And
that?
That was 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was just so fantastic. I absolutely loved it. So, yeah, that's probably my biggest risk. But having said that, I didn't really feel that. I gave myself over to the person that I was jumping with and said, oh, well, he knows what he's doing. I'm just going to leave myself. And if he tells me to jump out, I'm just going to go. And I really had that mindset that, oh, well, I'm paying for this. He knows what he's doing. I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah.
And I so loved it. It was fantastic. Absolutely. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Did you do that here in Brizzy?
Yeah, I did. And I actually did it with a girlfriend of mine. And she just turned 60 last year. And I said, so are we going to do that again? Oh, it was for her 50th. And I said, so we're jumping out again? And she said, oh, I don't think my body will manage it again. So that was sad, actually. She's had some knee and hip injuries, so and that was sad. But yeah, we had a blast.
Well, she could maybe try paragliding.
Paragliding, yeah, not quite the same though.
Not
I'm a
quite the same, but you
bit of
are
a genuine
flying.
drunkie. I've realised that hot air ballooning is not my thing. It's all a bit boring.
Yeah, but
And although the best part when I did it was that we crashed. That was awesome. That was really good. We crashed into a house. That was really good. And yes, they were in Brisbane. Yeah, that
Oh,
I did.
nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Judy, I wonder what does fun look like for you then? If that's what you do for a risk, it sounds like you love your risks. So what's fun look like for you?
Fun is, I guess, is just really enjoying my family, having fun together, laughing, doing the things that, you're passionate about and you love.
Yeah,
And of course, we can't do them every day or all the time, but make time for those things in your life. And I think that's what, is good for your heart,
yeah.
good for your body.
That's it. Good for our heart. Makes our happy heart sing.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, Judy, it's just been an absolute delight talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. It's been a blast. Really, really enjoyed it anytime. And lovely to see you. And you still look like a model to me.
Oh, I thank you very much. It's the lovely lighting.
Thanks, Katie. Have a great night, darling. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. And thank
Thank
you to
you.
everybody who's watching or listening today. If you need more help with this, just book in for a private session and let's just get it done this week because life is for living and an ounce of adjustment is always easier to implement than 20 pounds of change. It's time to enjoy the life you've been looking for. Bye for now.